So what made me stop is that I saw my children growing up. I saw a part of myself grow, and what I loved, which was recording videos, I still loved it, but
Dubbing direction by Flavia Fontanelle, with the voices of Andre Marcondes, Flavia Fontanelle, Silvia Salusti, Gabriela Medeiros.
When no one was expecting it, we received the video. I disappeared for 3 years from Kawe from Baixa Memoria. And there, he doesn't show up to announce a new project, to justify the algorithm, or to make that rehearsed comeback we've seen so many times on the internet. He appears at a worn out and human moment. When the camera turns on, the first thing we notice is that Baixa Memoria is there, but at the same time, he's not whole, not the way we used to see him, and with a different smile. He makes a request, but not for likes, comments, or engagement. He asks for time. He asks people to watch until the end. He says he needs the help of those watching, not just to watch the video, but to, in one last moment, be with him again. And that weighs heavily. It really does. When a creator shows this level of public vulnerability, it means the struggle was significant. And well, in the video, we have the opportunity to see Kawe open his heart to the audience, and it's not an easy video at all. He says that his last appearance 3 years ago before he disappeared was in the channel's 10-year anniversary special, a video that for those who watched it seemed like a celebration, but today it takes on a different meaning. Kawe, he remembers that at 12 years old, his biggest dream wasn't fame or numbers, it was simply to draw, to create worlds, stories, playful things. And at 14, when he created the channel, he found a place where he could use all of that. Along with his voice, imagination, playfulness, and storytelling, YouTube became a safe space, almost a creative refuge. And in the 10-year special, he talked about his achievements, talked about his little brothers, talked about the journey he had taken, but now looking back, he starts to reveal the weight that came along with it. What many people didn't know is that for at least 8 out of those 10 years, the routine was brutal. Every day, without exception, he would wake up, go to the computer, think about the script, record, edit, make the artwork, write the title, description, tags, and post every single day. For 8 years, and even when he eventually got help with the technical parts, the main responsibility was always his. It was creation, production, delivery, all concentrated in just one person. And when he anticipates the question everyone would ask, if this wasn't exhausting, the answer is surprising. He says he loved it, really loved it, and that is perhaps the most dangerous part of the story, because the harm you do doesn't automatically protect you from burnout. On the contrary, many times it's exactly that love that makes a person cross boundaries without realizing it. Mental health doesn't break all at once. It wears down little by little, especially when the pace never slows down. The video's start clearly shows the disappearance wasn't random due to disinterest or abandonment. It was a natural consequence of years of consistency, of early responsibility, of wanting to be working, while the world demanded that he was always fine, always available, and always creative. Understanding this completely changes our perspective. We see 3 years of silence before he reaches a very cruel point. Kawe remembers that his childhood dream was always to speak, share ideas, record, use his voice, and create. He always wanted to be a broadcaster, to tell stories, and to express himself. But at some point, unfortunately, that flame started to fade. Not suddenly, not like a clear snap, but little by little, it's that fateful moment when you realize it's just not the same anymore. After the special 10-year video, he tried making more content, but it wasn't the same. He just didn't feel as happy anymore. And that's confusing, because how does someone stop feeling good doing exactly what they've always dreamed of doing, something that came from childhood, something people liked to watch, something that worked? And that question really eats away at you, because there's no simple answer. Sometimes loving something doesn't mean you can keep doing it forever without hurting yourself in the process. And then the pandemic hits, a period that was tough for everyone, but for him, the forced isolation hit a very specific point. Kawe makes it clear that he doesn't function well in isolation. He needs to see people, touch people, exchange energy, record, be on the move. That's part of who he is. And I might even be, which is true, because every time I saw him in person, he was always a very warm person. And the thing is, when you're already going through an internal process of not feeling good about your own work, adding that to prolonged isolation can be a nightmare. He says that it started to create really bad moments, which only made the internal crisis he had been suffering for a long time even worse. After that period ends, another shock follows. YouTube changed, and not just the platform, but people, the audience changed, habits changed, the way people consume content changed, and that becomes yet another shock. Obviously here we're talking about TikTok, and Kawe uses a very strong but honest word, zombie, and he includes himself in that. Content is now faster and auto-consumed with endless scrolling, training the brain to crave constant short bursts, causing conflict. The people from the older generation always made long videos, 15, 20, 30, 40 minutes, videos to keep you company, to talk, to be present, but suddenly the narrative changes. Now, you need to grab attention in just a few seconds, you need to shout, you need to learn, you need to perform all the time. Don't misunderstand him. He knows this is work and it sustains both his life and many others. He's not refusing to change. He knows he needs to adapt to the new formats, but at the same time, there's an inner child there, looking at all this and thinking, man, now I have to become something else, completely different, just to keep existing. And my friends, that hurts. That's when the outside stops matching the inside. When work starts demanding that you move too far away from who you are, that's when the price comes. Not all at once, but quietly. This part of the video clearly shows the zombie wasn't about laziness, lack of will, or abandoning the audience. It was a deep burnout between love, obligation, a change of scenery, and the feeling of getting lost on your own path. And recognizing that, talking about it out loud is already a huge step. Not just for him, but for anyone who's felt pressured to change so much they no longer recognize themselves. Kawe concludes in the video that he ended up stuck in time. It's like in Cars 3 when Lightning McQueen gets overtaken and realizes he's changed. He's tired of himself. The platform changed, the rules changed, and the demand became an absurd, constant, and almost violent reinvention. At the same time, more and more people were creating, emerging, and competing for attention, not out of malice, but because the system pushes everyone into it. And then comes one of the heaviest lines in the story. He says he started to feel weak. That hurts because nobody wants to admit they feel out of place in a space they helped build. Kawe was always a gamer, always into Minecraft, Roblox, lots of first-person shooter games and others. That was his identity. In that new scenario, he faced a cruel dilemma. To keep doing something he no longer loved, or in the same way to move to another niche or turn into something artificial, more performative, just to survive. That's when his mental health began showing clear warning signs. When work becomes a disguise, when you feel like you need to hide behind a format just to keep existing, the strain stops being technical and becomes emotional. He admits that he had already been feeling that he didn't love doing that anymore, but what really made him stop and what made him not want to record videos anymore was, at a specific moment, a breaking point. Kawe illustrates that when he was 14 years old, he started to be a father, not to a person, but to something that was being born, the channel. He saw it grow from the very first day. And anyone who has ever taken care of something from scratch knows what that means. You dedicate time, love, care, energy. He used to record day and night, not to get a reward, not thinking about money, fame, or status. That was never the main motivation. He did it because he loved it, because he believed in it, and because he felt that it was a part of him. And of course, when he started, the little guys were 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. They were literally kids. And today, when he goes out on the street, those same little guys are 18, 20 years old. They simply grew up with him. It's a strange feeling to describe, and I understand it. Even knowing they're not his children, he admits that's how it feels. It's a different bond, silent, but very real, a kind of emotional responsibility that few people on the outside understand. He acknowledges that this has a downside and that it weighs on his conscience. What had started as a teenager, making videos, joking around, swearing, and communicating in his own way, reached a point where he could no longer record just anything, where he was no longer familiar, that it stops being fun and becomes influence and an example for younger generations, which, let's face it, is an achievement that not every Minecraft giant has had at some point. Taking on this responsibility so early without emotional readiness, a guide, or a break is tough. There were no YouTubers to look up to. He and his friends at the time were practically pioneers on this journey of creating something to be proud of, not just for themselves, but for their own children. And when you put that level of pressure on yourself for years on end, without real rest, without space or stopping, your body and mind start to show signs. This part of the video shows the channel was more than content. It was about a deep emotional bond. And this is where his story becomes even more painful, because Kawa admits that what really made him stop was realizing that his children had grown up.
So what made me stop was that I saw my children growing up. I saw a part of me grow, and what I loved, which was recording videos, I still loved. But how am I going to reach them? How am I going to record? What am I going to record? Those were my biggest questions, man, but they don't want to see me playing anymore, but I'll always be the game guy, you know, the dad who tries. You know, the dad who tries to win over his son when he's older. That was how I felt.
He saw you grow up. He saw a part of himself grow along with you. And even though he still loved recording, a question came up that wouldn't leave his mind: how to reach them now. He describes it as a father trying to reconnect with his teenage son, loving and wanting closeness, but unsure how to reach him. And during those 3 years, he tried to come back several times with the thought that he needed to win back the subscribers somehow, that he needed to come back big, that he needed to come back the right way. And the first big pain came from that, not being able to be present during this growth, not being able to follow the transition.
So, during these 3 years, I had to find several ways to come back with that thought. Man, I need to win them back somehow. I have to come back big. That was my first big pain.
That hurts, because it creates a sense of failure even when there's no real blame. Then, right after that, comes the second blow, maybe even more cruel. Perfectionism. He says he became a perfectionist to the extreme. Nothing could be simple, nothing could just be recorded. Each video had to be bigger than the previous one, more impactful, partly due to the platform, partly because content sped up, and mostly because the guys had grown up and he felt he needed to meet their standards. The result of this was paralysis, an entire year stuck, trying to be perfect, trying to be the best example of a father. In this analogy he carries, nothing came out because for him, nothing was good enough.
I wanted to do something bigger. I wanted to do something better. It needs to be bigger, better, bigger, bigger, better, better. And I couldn't produce anything, nothing came out because I wanted to be the best example of a father in this analogy. After this battle with perfectionism, I started to get frustrated. And I started more and more to hit rock bottom, literally.
After that, obviously came frustration, one after another, until I hit rock bottom. And when he uses that expression, it's not just a figure of speech. He describes this period as the most difficult moment of his life. It's simply devastating to look at everything you've built, everything you've achieved with so much effort just slip away. He says, without beating around the bush, that he felt alone.
From his half awakening and you can subscribe, gag, considering the parenthesis.
And being totally transparent, he talks about anxiety attacks, about moments he considers depressive, about heavy thoughts, the kind that make a person ask themselves what they're doing here. He talks about completely losing the desire to record, about the feeling that the Maninhos have grown up, gone their separate ways, found other creators, and that maybe they no longer had any value. Not as a personal attack, but as an internal feeling, the sense that he had already done everything he needed to do and that everything was over, even at the peak of 25 years old. And that, as he himself says, is horrible, because the worst thing you can do to someone who loves what they do is kill their purpose, and that's exactly what happened. The purpose that existed in the beginning, to record what he loved, to take care of the people, to be together, slowly faded away. And when purpose dies, fear, anxiety, and depression come in. Without asking permission,
my purpose was gone. I know that's heavy. Honestly, I know many people will comment on it. Kawe, man, look, I'm even trying to make this video as concise as possible so you can understand. But I felt like my purpose had really ended, you know? I was at rock bottom, man, literally. I had anxiety attacks. I didn't feel like doing anything, right, Anna? I wouldn't wish that on anyone.
he knows many people see him from the outside and assume he had a perfect life. But he really emphasizes this point. None of that guarantees happiness, none of that sustains anyone. When the purpose is gone, he speaks with maturity. It's not what you own, material things, or status that keeps you going. Purpose sustains you, and when it's gone, the emptiness is real. He said this rock bottom was so deep he couldn't see any light or a way out. That's when he says he clung even more to Christ through his faith. Beautiful, but in honest desperation, he asked for guidance, he asked for a new purpose, because for him, it didn't make sense for everything to end there.
As you know, I'm a Christian, I believe in Christ, and that was the moment when I clung to Christ the most. Really, Father, what do you want me to do? Because I can't be without a purpose. My purpose can't end here, it doesn't make sense. And that was the moment I started to breathe, when I started to ask God, man, what is it? The new purpose? Yeah. It's not possible that I came this far just to end it. It's not possible. Man, it's not possible. I don't want this, man, and I don't want to live this life.
Gradually, after those hard times, he begins to breathe again and seek answers. He realizes it may not have been the end, but the close of a cycle. He uses an analogy that ties everything together very carefully. Just like the little guys grew up, the channel also needs to grow. If before it was a child, then a teenager, now it needs to become a young adult. And cycles need to be closed with awareness. And he makes it clear that it doesn't mean ending everything, but that the way it was, yes, it will end, so that something new can exist. And to close this cycle, he proposes something symbolic and beautiful. Special live streams like a graduation dance, a moment of celebration, farewell, and gratitude. Because the channel was more than just content, it was a big community where everyone came together. The video was not just an explanation and heartfelt outpouring, but also an invitation for anyone wanting to join him in this closure. And then, in the new beginning, he says very clearly that he doesn't want to stop recording because that's part of who he is. He just needs a new vision, a new cycle. After this impactful but necessary video, there were 8 live streams focused on closure. The so-called nostalgic week didn't come about as a hype move, but as a rite of passage, a return full of emotion, humor, and improvisation, as it always was, but now with conscious intention. Throughout the live streams, the guests didn't appear as random participants. Each one joined as a living part of this journey, almost like chapters embodied in the story of Baisha Memoria. BIA's presence, for example, added intimacy and relevance, showing his current personal life is central, not separate from the content. The audience saw a more grounded Kawe, focused on family and aware that the channel is connected to off-screen life. Malena, on the other hand, represented another important layer, the memory of a more handcrafted internet with improvised voiceovers, free creativity without metrics or scripts. With Djibouti and Pedro DBR, the atmosphere shifted to an organized chaos familiar to classic Minecraft fans, reflecting the shared adolescence of creator and audience. The livestream with NoFax and FuriP further broadened perspectives by uniting different generations of content creators face to face. The conversation made it clear how much YouTube has changed, from total improvisation to a more strategic, thoughtful, and professional production. This contrast helps support one of the central ideas of the week: you can't go back to the past without losing the truth. Maturing doesn't mean erasing your past, but realizing it belongs to another time.
Hold on, am I going to use one?
Where's Kawe? Where's Kawe?
Hey, look up, Dad. Dad's here.
And he's coming back, and he's coming back. Where is he? And coming back, and Dad, hey Lopaka!
The Live with Odanote revolving around Roblox reinforced this notion of transition. It showed how new platforms and new audiences have been added to the channel's history over the years. Not as a break, but as continuity in other forms. It was another piece of this puzzle that pointed to adaptation without denying what came before. And finally, the participation of authentic games had a very strong symbolic weight. The conversation stopped being just a nostalgic reunion and became a generational reflection on cycles, maturity, and the future. When he says the past was amazing but not where we live now, and that the new is truly new, he captures those feelings perfectly. It resonated all week.
Hello? Good evening. Hold on.
I'll turn off the music. No, hold on. I'll put the other song back. Calm down. You know I'm modern now. Okay, TT. Now I'm modern, cool man. Okay, I'm actually old. If I'm old, I become modern. So what happens now? People talk about Aurea. Do you know this term, Aurea?
Aurea, more ego farming, Aurea, damn.
He knows, okay, I'm going to farm your Aurea now. Okay, how am I going to play the little song? And you pretend that, you got it. Okay, you didn't get it, but that's fine. I'll play the music and you come in. You don't need to do an intro, but the music will already be playing in the background. It's just to create a nostalgic moment. Hey, TT.
Hey, Kawe, hey, it's been a long time, man, my God.
Yeah, I want it to be fake. That's right, I like that. Super fake. Pretend we talked 10 years ago, okay?
And while those memories were being revisited, Kawe was gradually pointing toward what comes next. Without hurry, without promises, emptying out the low memory, Kawe ended up laying it all bare. Something that was always there but had never been clearly said. The channel was never about games, but about recording life in real time. That's exactly why the beginning of 2026 didn't come with a grand announcement, nor with a sudden turning point, nor with that exaggerated promise that now things will change. The year started off in a very calm way, with a classic vlog, a simple video, walking around Orlando, passing through Universal City Walk, going into themed stores, strolling without hurry, without a heavy script. If before the channel was about childhood and adolescence, now it's entering a more mature phase, less rushed and more conscious. And honestly, man, I think that's what it's all about. The universe has a very clear law of entropy. If you don't train, your muscles atrophy. If you don't reinvent yourself, you become obsolete. Someone who has created content for over 10 years may now be interested in a new narrative. We, as the audience, will have to get used to more YouTubers disappearing, changing focus, or retiring. We are simply the first generation to see a profession that didn't even exist before retire, and that's really crazy. If you think about it, we're simply growing up. Jazz Ghost got married, Godonot will be a father, and Felizos13 had his second child. Time passes and only God knows our future, but Waymine is here, growing up with you. Since 2020 as teenagers, we've supported the platform's biggest YouTuber. We're still here and hope to stay for a long time. I look forward to seeing you at Gamescom, an event like Brazil Game Show in Sao Paulo. I always enjoy chatting with the channel and each of you. If you watched this far, follow me on Instagram at Imine77 and best of luck to Kawe from Baisha Memoria.